my calendula row. Whoops, uh-oh. Hi. We are having such great weather this week. And I did quite a bit of planting yesterday. I was outside this morning and I prepped a couple of beds, some in-ground rows and a couple of raised beds here on this side of me. But what I really wanted to do this afternoon is do some direct seeding. Now we're still about 6 weeks out from our average last frost date, but there's a lot of things that can handle those temperatures. I've got some flowers, I've got some vegetables, a lot of leafy greens. We have green onions in here somewhere, mustard greens or mizuna. There's lots of different kinds of mustard, just like lettuce. I've got some lettuce too. What else do we have for vegetables? I have some beets, cylindra beets. Oh, herbs. We have cilantro and dill too. Those are two really good cool weather herbs that can be pretty easily direct seeded, and a frost isn't going to bother them at all. And then I do have quite a few flowers here. Buplurum is greenery that I like to use in bouquets. Stock. I have larkspur. Does anybody else sneeze on sunny days? Here's my hat. So yeah, I sneeze when it's really bright out. The hat will help. Then I have some nigella or love in a mist. This is a really cool flower. I do like to use the seed pods a little bit, and one of them is called Albion Green Pod. The others are Nigella damascena, and this one is Nigella papiosa. Chinese forget-me-nots, which I have some in the greenhouse. Lupins, which I did start a few. I'm going to direct seed some as well, and they're not going to stay in the bed that I'm direct seeding them. These are perennial. I'm just going to start them out here. The seeds are really big. They should come up pretty easily. And then I'm going to move them later on. And then I have calendula. So, oh, I almost forgot this one. This is Bells of Ireland seed, which I collected from my own plants, I think 2 years ago. I also have my coffee and a brownie, but that's going to be for later. Let me put those in the greenhouse. We got -5 degrees Celsius overnight last night. The soil was crispy, it was frosty, and it was really cold. That's 5 degrees below freezing. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but all our temperatures, at least for the next 10 days, are above freezing overnight. It is gorgeous in the greenhouse today. Now, last night, because of the cold, I had all of these shelves grouped together, wrapped with multiple layers of frost cloth, and it actually stayed +6 degrees. I had a little thermometer in the midst of all of that, just so that I could come out here early in the morning and see how well that worked. And that is 11 degrees difference than the outside temperature. Now the greenhouse itself offers a couple degrees for sure, but all of that frost cloth kept everything in here really happy. So everything is now moved back to where it's supposed to be, and there isn't so much in here that I can't do all of that in about 5 minutes. But I did bring a couple of extra things out here since I planted all my ranunculus the other day. So here are the bunching onions, the lettuce, and the mustard. This is the exact same varieties that we're going to direct seed today. There's some beets over here that I do have started in a tray. We're going to direct seed some of those as well. And then down here we have some cilantro, some dill, and 24 cells of calendula that need to get a little bit bigger before I plant that out. But then on the other side, now these just came out this morning. This is the Chinese forget-me-not. It's looking really, really good. That's going to get planted out my next round. And then I have a tray of Buplurum here too. And sometimes you'll find that the direct seeded things, once they get going, they end up growing a little bit faster than things that end up having to be transplanted. It depends on the size of them at transplant. It depends on the soil temperature for the direct seeded things. And you never really know what the weather's going to be like for the few weeks after something's direct seeded. I mean, the forecast can change. So I do like to, as a bit of an insurance policy, have things direct seeded and have things started inside too. And if they both work out well, then I just have twice as much. So that is just a little preview, but for now, let's go grab those seeds and get planting. So this upper garden doesn't get tilled, but I did buy a little tool this spring just to help soften up the top layers because we do get clay, it does get packed down, and there's a lot of rocks. I have 8 rows here in this upper bed, and I just did the first 10 feet or so of this first one, which is about half, because that's all that I plan on seeding today. I'm going to do a little bit at a time because it would take me probably 2 full days or one very long day to do this entire garden, and there's no need until I'm actually ready to plant it. And then I've just come through and shaped 3 shallow trenches, which is where we're going to put the seeds. So when you're planning out your planting, it's helpful to know the level of sun that each thing is going to require. It's also helpful to know which direction the sun is moving over the summer. At the moment, the sun is a little bit lower in the sky and it's lower that way. So this area gets a lot of sun, but when it's full sun in the summer, and it is full sun from first thing in the morning until about 2 o'clock, and that's at peak daylight in the summer. So I'm going to start at this end with things that prefer the cooler temperatures and then work my way towards warmer weather stuff as I get to that end, because that end's going to get more sun. So I'm going to start with greens. Now I made 3 rows here. Come on. Oh, that's a perfect amount. So I'm going to do about a 2-foot row of mustard in the row closest to me. And then the other 2, I'm going to do lettuce. Mustard can be a little bit on the spicy side, so if you don't like that too much, you can mix it with a regular lettuce. I like a little bit of that flavor, but I don't know if I'd eat only the mustard greens on their own, so it can be a little bit intense. Now these lettuce seeds are coated or pelleted, and we're going to put those in the front 2 rows. All right, so the lettuce seed is very obvious. And you sort of can see the mustard seeds. They're not as obvious, but they are perfectly round. So if you look carefully, you can pick those out. So there's the cilantro seed, very unique looking. And I'm going to put this where the mustard left off. Now I use a ton of cilantro, so I'm going to do 2 rows of cilantro. Again, very thickly sowed. And 1 row of dill. Dill seed's also pretty unique. Let's try not to drop that in my cilantro row. So our last 2 are beets and bunching onions. Now I don't always sow things in straight rows, but if you're a beginner gardener, the advantage to that is when the weeds come up, and there's always going to be weeds, you'll be able to distinguish what's a weed and what is something that you actually planted, because what you planted will be in a straight line and the weeds will not. There, so there's the bunching onions up to about there. And if I can't see the seeds that easily, I'm just going to draw a little line like that so that when I pick up my next seed packet, I'll know exactly where I stopped. So the last one is beets, and there are not a ton here, but that's all right. So I'm not going to sow these quite as thickly. I'm covering about 24 inches, about 2 feet or so. And then we'll see what kind of germination we get. I can always come through and seed some more later. There. Now the bigger the seed, the deeper you want to cover them. The biggest seed here is definitely the beets, and then maybe the cilantro. And really these smaller seeds I'm just barely covering, because as I water and as we get some rain, because it's in a low spot that I put the seeds, the rain is going to help to cover that up. And I'm not really covering the lettuce seed at all because it does need a little bit of light to germinate. So you can just sort of see them. Some of them are a little bit covered. Even if there's a light layer of soil, the light can usually get through enough for it to germinate. Oh, it is not as warm as it looks. Now I've got some perennial bunching onions down here. I've never actually used. They've been here for 3 years. I grew them from seed, but I never get to them before they start to produce flower spikes. But they look like they're perfect stage to harvest right now. And I had a little bare spot there that I prepared. I didn't end up seeding anything there. That's probably going to be for the next round. But the rest of the row actually has some perennials planted in it. This is Aquilegia or Columbine. It's only about 2 to 3 inches tall at the moment. And behind it we have some delphiniums. Now these were planted about 18 months ago, both of these things. So delphiniums and the columbine were both started about 2 years ago and then planted out to overwinter. And then last year we got beautiful blooms from all of them. A lot of these Aquilegias are doubles, and then some of the delphiniums were well over 7 feet tall last year. So I can't wait to see what they do this year. And then everything else is still basically bare. And the plan for this is that it's going to be the food garden. There's 8 rows up until you get to the little kids garden, sandbox and patio area that are way over there on the far end. So there's the upper garden. Not looking its best, but at least we've started it. And next we will go plant some flowers. Now this bed, I'm going to treat a little bit differently. The vegetables that we just planted are pretty much going to grow where we've put them until they're ready to harvest. But a seed bed is where we can sow seeds basically as we would indoors, seed start, and then end up transplanting them somewhere else later on. So I may do that with these or some of these. That's certainly true for the lupins, which we might as well do first and then put in the first row over there. So there are your lupin seeds. They're a good size, and you can tell when they're about to germinate if you start them in, say, wet paper towel, because they really swell up and more than double in size. Now the shadows are strong today, but I'm going to aim to do these about an inch apart because I don't want to have to thin them. And I got near perfect germination inside. And as these are a good size, we're going to put about 1/2 inch of soil, give or take, over the top. Now I'm going to do the Nigella next. And my official recommendation is always label what you plant, but since I'm running low on labels, this video is going to be my labeling system. So this one is Albion Green Pod, and those are going in the next row. Nigella self-seeds really easily too, so I'm definitely not worried about these ones coming up. And sometimes they may sit there for weeks, but they always come up once the soil temperature is appropriate for them. So that one was Persian Jewels Mix. That was an old seed packet, so I may get lower germination on that one. And this one is Midnight. Now we're going to do a couple rows of this Chinese forget-me-not. I'll use these for bouquet fillers, and I don't mind emptying the seed packet because I have more inside. So we're going to do 2 rows of these. And then we're going to do 2 rows of Bupleurum. Oh, that's not very many seed. We're going to do 1 row of Bupleurum. But I mostly rely on Bupleurum for early season anyway. Once the season gets going, I have a lot more greenery that I can fill that space with. Green Heart Orange. If you've never seen calendula seeds, they are the coolest looking things. And yes, that is the whole seed. Oh, shadows are a pain in the butt today. Not very many of these, so we're going to put calendula in the front half of that row only, my calendula row. Whoops! Uh-oh. I had a catastrophe. Hang on. I just knocked over my Bells of Ireland and it was not closed. Okay. That's okay. I didn't have anything right here, so what I'm going to do is that. And I was actually going to just spread, ow! Bells of Ireland has spikes. There, we're just going to do that. That's fine. Oh, larkspur. So I did 2 rows way over on the far side of larkspur. And this is an old seed packet too. I'm really just trying to get through these because I have multiple seed packets of each thing. Now, there's a lot of tulip foliage in this bed. This is where I had my mass planting of tulips last year. And I thought I ripped them all out, but I guess I didn't. So I'm just broadcasting these larkspur seeds too. So I'm leaving the tulips here just to see what comes up. If I get a few bonus flowers, great. If not, that's fine. They'll come out at the end of the season. Or not. If they don't flower this year, they probably will the year after that. And now I have a giant handful of empty seed packets. So that was a job well done. So hopefully we'll get good germination on those. And then this bed I prepared also, that is going to have some transplants put into it. You can tell the house still casts a little bit of shade in the middle of the day just because the sun is a bit lower. But that is still a perfectly fine place to put things like anemones, probably the Bupleurum and the Chinese forget-me-nots that I have growing in the greenhouse. All of those things are going to go in this bed right there. But I think that's going to be a weekend job. Now I shouldn't have to water those again, at least not for the next week or so since it's supposed to rain this weekend. So those should be just fine, and now I can just forget about those and let them come up on their own. And now that my hands are very chilly, we can go into the greenhouse and I can have my brownie and my coffee. Perfect idea putting a chair and table in here. My thermometer is reading 22 degrees in here and it's 4 outside. So Definitely cold finger weather outside, but absolutely fantastic in here. So I'm going to enjoy this and my brownie, and then I think I'm going to film that seedling tour for you guys. So if you haven't seen that yet, that's definitely the next video you will see, although that's usually a much quicker to edit video, so you may end up seeing that first. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, yes. Hello. Oh, so good.